What we're going to do today is talk about why trying to solve one of these is just like practicing one of these. That's right, we're going to think about why piano scales are like puzzles and how you can get better at solving them. We're also going to go outside and move some things around, which will help us to understand why practicing your scales is the single best thing you can do for your piano playing. But first, let's try a puzzle. This is one you can have a go at even if you've only just started learning the piano. If you're more experienced and it seems too easy, stick with me, you'll see why. We're just going to play a scale of C major in the right hand over 2 octaves. I'll put the finger numbering on screen. Remember, we number the fingers of both hands outwards from the thumb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we go. Now there are 3 sides to this particular puzzle. First of all, I want you to play the scale as evenly as possible. That means minimising the bumps as your thumb goes under on the way up and your fingers come over on the way down. That's not easy because your thumb in particular will tend to thump down. Imagine you have somebody listening to you. They shouldn't be able to hear the moments when your fingers cross. That is the ideal you are aiming for. And it's easy enough at low speeds, but once you increase the speed even a bit, it starts to be a challenge. Second, I want your scale to be as controlled as possible. Usually that means smooth legato playing at a steady volume. Sometimes you can vary the dynamics, as we'll see. But whatever you do, your scale should always be musical rather than mechanical. Third, I want your scale to be regular. You need to play it in time with no slowing down for tricky bits. When we come to playing hands together, that also means keeping both hands in sync. Again, that's not too tricky at slow speeds in C major, but once you get to fast scales with lots of black notes, it starts to get really hard. So your scales need to be even, controlled and regular. Managing just one of those factors in isolation shouldn't be too much trouble, but when you have to think about all 3 at once, that's when your scale practice starts to become like doing a Rubik's Cube. If you've ever had a go at one of these, you'll know it's actually pretty straightforward to solve one face, but then when you move on to solving another, you have to break up the one you've just done, and it's really super annoying and frustrating. The secret of success is to approach the thing as a whole, to think hard, to focus carefully, and come up with a strategy that allows you to solve all the faces at once. So when you practice your scales, you have to focus hard on what you're doing and think about all the factors you're dealing with. It's from that focus that you get the massive benefits of scale practice. Next, let's try a scale with a black note in it, because that adds a whole extra dimension to the puzzle. Let me play you the scale of F major over 2 octaves in the right hand. By the way, if you need to slow things down to catch what I'm doing, either now or at any point in the tutorial, just use the YouTube speed function under the cog icon at the bottom of the screen. Here we go. Now that B flat gives you an interesting problem. It's a big old swing over from the 4th on there to the thumb on the C, and it's pretty hard not to land with a crash or to lose a little bit of time or something. There are a couple of ways to solve that. First of all, don't be afraid to dig your fingers a little bit deeper into the keyboard this way, yeah? If you play on the edges of the white notes, then you have to lunge for the B flat, but if you're a little bit closer, it's less of a leap. Second, don't have a lazy thumb. As soon as your thumb's done its job, for example on the F, start it moving under your fingers like it's sprinting round to get in both ends of a panoramic photo. Then you don't get the situation where you're like 1, 2, 3, 4, I need my thumb, there it is, whip it under, crunch. Yeah, it needs to be close and ready for when that C appears. That's less easy with fingers coming over on the way down, but you still need to be aware of the need to get over in a timely way. Okay, are you ready for the next level? We're going to try the scale of B flat major over 2 octaves in the left hand, and we're going to try varying the dynamics, which will really test your control. We start this one on our 3rd finger, and after just a few notes in, we've got a big sweep over with our 4th, like that. Let's just get the fingers dialed in first, and then we can think about the dynamics. Remember, things are reversed. It's fingers over on the way up and thumbs under on the way down. So your thumb running around the back to get to those notes needs to be on its toes on the way down. So now let's try to start soft and get louder on the way up, a crescendo, and then get softer on the way down, a diminuendo. And let's try to make it musical rather than mechanical. I'll take it at a reasonable speed just to test myself a little bit. Here we go. Not too bad. I think on the way down I brought the diminuendo in too quickly. I was down almost to minimal volume around here, so that wasn't tremendously even. In terms of evenness of the playing, I didn't do too badly, but I had to concentrate quite hard around the E flat in particular. Let's try again. Not bad, a little bit of unevenness there, and again, not quite the dynamic control that I will want. So if you're practicing like this and you notice that sort of difficulty, well, that's good because you've identified another aspect of the puzzle that you can work on in your practice. Okay, this has all been a bit brain-bending so far, so let's take a break and think about why practicing your scales is so useful. To do that, we need to think of them as functional exercises. Functional exercise is any sort of exercise that helps you do stuff. So let's think for a second about some of the stuff I do when I'm not playing the piano. I like to keep the garden in a good state, so I do a fair bit of digging. I ride my bike a lot, which means not just riding, but also lifting and shifting whichever bike I'm using. We're renovating our house, so I move a lot of bags of rubble and reinforced concrete lintels and things like that. And we have young kids, so I spend a lot of time moving them and the frankly ridiculous amount of gear they seem to need. Now, all of those activities are pretty good ways of injuring myself, and let's face it, I'm not getting any younger. So I do functional exercises, simple things like squats and yoga that help to keep me strong and flexible, so that when I have to do stuff like move my bike or change the kids' car seats around, I can do it safely and efficiently and effectively. Scales work in exactly the same way. They are functional exercises that support your piano playing and help you do it efficiently, effectively, and yes, even safely. Because if you warm up with scales before you practice, then as long as you don't overdo the scales themselves, they can help protect you against strains and overuse injuries. When you practice any scale, you're training the fine motor control in your fingers. That allows you to play with greater expression, making your music sound like music rather than someone just pressing notes on the piano. Yeah, musical rather than mechanical. That is the core of the puzzle. Crucially, scales also even out the abilities of your different fingers. Now, but by default, most of us are more confident with 1, 2 and 3 on each hand than we are with 4 and 5. By practicing your scales, you're bringing those end fingers closer to parity with their neighbours. That's important because when you're playing songs or pieces, you don't want some notes to sound strong because you're playing them with strong fingers, and some to sound weak because you're playing them with weak fingers. You want evenness and control. Scales also train your procedural memory, what you might call your muscle memory, over a range of keys. So if you want to learn a song in B flat major and the 2 flats of that key naturally fall under your fingers because you're used to playing the scale, then learning it is going to be a lot easier. So practicing your scales brings you massive benefits. But here's the real kicker. Scale practice is the easiest form of piano practice to turn into a habit, and that is incredibly useful. We'll talk more about habits in just a moment. For now though, let's get back to the piano and try playing a scale with hands together. That's going to add yet another level to our puzzle. Hand independence. I want you to work on A harmonic minor, which is all of the white notes between any two A's on the piano keyboard, except like all harmonic minor scales, it has a sharpened seventh, so we play G sharp instead of G. If you're new to playing two-handed scales on the piano, it's best to start with contrary motion because your thumbs and fingers are doing the same things at the same times. All the other levels of challenge still apply: evenness, control and regularity. Regularity actually becomes more challenging because you have to think about keeping the two hands in sync with one another. Now that's not too difficult with a scale like A harmonic minor, because even though it has that awkward stretch between the sixth note and the sharpened seventh, it's not too tough. Things become more challenging as you attempt scales with more black notes, as we'll see. Something you can do to target that challenge of regularity is practice against a metronome or a click track. So here I've got Impulse for the iPhone, which is my favourite metronome, and I'm going to try this contrary motion A harmonic minor at a comfortable tempo. We'll say 80 beats per minute, and I'll play 2 notes per beat. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that needs a little bit of concentration in itself, so it's definitely worth trying. Once you're happy with contrary motion, try similar motion, which, like I say, is more challenging because things are happening at different times in the two hands. By the way, if you're enjoying this tutorial so far, please do check out my books and other products, and also my Patreon, where, among other things, you can get access to my ongoing Exercises, Inventions and Ideas series, which is packed full of weirdly addictive piano exercises. Find out more about that over at patreon.com/Bill Hilton. So scale practice ticks several of the boxes that a behaviour needs to be habit forming. To start with, there's a low barrier to entry. It's easy to sit down at the piano and start practicing your scales. Scales can also be incredibly satisfying. Now, many kids famously hate practicing their scales, but to the neurologically mature adult brain, scales can be really rewarding, especially if, as I suggest, you see each scale as a puzzle to be solved. If you've ever used learning apps like Duolingo, you can see scale practice as being the same kind of thing. The folks who developed Duolingo have made it very habit forming. It's rewarding, it takes you on a steady learning curve with lots of reinforcement. Die Musik von Vivaldi ist... Nein. And it's right there in your pocket on your phone. You can make your scale practice work the same way. Das ist nicht wahr. Can you manage a 30-day practice streak, or 60 days, or 100 days? This kind of habit-based approach is brilliant for adult learners. Maybe we don't have the sheer speed of learning that kids have, but we can compensate by using our love of satisfying habits to build in lots of exercises and reinforcement. Scales are perfect for that. So that's what I think about the subject of habit and adult piano learning. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And a health warning, by the way, scales can be really addictive and really satisfying, but if you do too much too soon, it's really easy to overdo it and get some kind of repetitive strain injury. Now, take it from me, you really don't want one of those. They're very unpleasant. So if you get the very slightest pain or discomfort, ease off, maybe take some medical advice and get back into it gently. So now let's move on to the ultimate challenge, lots of black notes. We're going to try the scale of F sharp minor in 2 hands in similar motion across 4 octaves. Now you're probably like, whoa Bill, my mate Dave is on grade 198,000 and even he hasn't learned F sharp harmonic minor yet. But don't worry, actually it's pretty doable. The basic notes of the scale are F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D, E sharp, the note otherwise known as F, and back to F sharp at the top of the scale. And we start with our 3rd finger in the right and our 4th in the left. To start with, I'll just do it over 2 octaves fairly slowly so you can catch the fingering. Here we go. Now this is one where your evenness, control and regularity really get tested, yeah? So let me try it at higher tempo over the full 4 octaves and let's see how I do. I'm probably going to start out of shot. Here we go. Not too bad, a little bit rocky on the way down. Often it is on the way down that you run into problems when you are doing more complex scales over bigger distances. That's because going up you're kind of pushing, but coming down you're dragging your hands. It's quite difficult to describe, but getting your fingers over, you know, doing that pull down always seems like a more elaborate, more unstable exercise than getting your thumbs under on the way up. Okay, so just kind of watch out when you are doing that you might be fine on the way up, but then when you start to come down it might get more difficult. Now with this or any scale, it's really important to stress that there is no victory point, there is no perfection. You can keep working on these things for decades and still continue to find new ways of improving them and new little problems that you want to fix. And just by doing that you will be constantly refining your skill on the piano keyboard. So if you want to learn more scales, where do you start? Well, a good place could be my Piano for Beginners course, which includes loads of scales. It's available for free on YouTube. You can find all the links and downloadable PDFs at billspianopages.com/beginners. Or you could get a book like the ABRSM Manual of Scales, which is ideal if you're a music reader. And if you want to learn more piano exercises, why not check out this tutorial, which lots of people tell me is lots of fun. I'll see you over there.